Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
A personal Mandela effect. The Mandela effect, an experience that a lot of people, some maybe you have experienced. A classic example is the Berenstain Bears. Now suddenly being Berenstain, I was one of those people that grew up knowing about the E, and then being completely shell-shocked that it's now an A. However, something else also happened to me. A personal Mandela effect, a vivid memory that I remember almost all too well as a child. I wish to share this story. Will do my best to Greentext, but I might be ass, but here goes. Be me. Be around 8 or 9 years old. It's summer and my father wants to go camping. He has a trailer camper. Decides to go to Alberta, Canada. We are in California, so the trip was long. We reached the camping grounds. I do not remember where exactly, but in my research it might be in Cataract Creek, because I remember being near a body of water. We do a lot of fishing, be mesmerized by nature. Father-son bonding. JPEG. Dusk falls. We head to camp to cook what we caught. Hear howling as it grows dark. Dad shows concern but shrugs it off. An hour or so later, watching Dad enjoy cooking. Looks up and his expression goes pale. Hear multiple sounds of crunching leaves and twigs. Look over to the noise. See multiple yellow eyes staring at us. Proceed to scream like a girl. Dad immediately grabs me and runs in the camper. As we did, they ran in growling. Can never forget their eyes, glowing yellow and snarling teeth. Got in the trailer just in time. Dad plans to get to the truck with his keys. He then panics, remembering he left them outside. Where those beasts are. Proceed to wait. Every time I peeked over curiously, the biggest one stares me down, jumps to the window growling. Dad yells at me to stay in cover. Lost track of time, but things finally go quiet. We look over, and they are gone. Dad immediately tears it outside, while holding me, and starts the car. Drives to a nearby town and talks to the police.
Now it's been quite a few years ever since this happened. Every time I learn about Innerwood's creepy stories, I am reminded of it. Those eyes staring me down. The growling. I remember it so vividly. And as a teen, my dad sometimes talks about it with me, saying it was the most terrifying thing he has ever experienced, even though I do not like the thought of being near an actual wolf. But all of that suddenly changed after I asked my sister about it on my 21st birthday. She has no memory of me going to Canada at all, let alone going away on vacation. When I got a chance to talk to Dad about it, he too had zero memory of it. I ended up asking Canadian friends, and they said no wolves usually show up in that area of Canada. They are usually way further up north. I still wonder to this day if it was all just a vivid dream, or just something my head thought up as a child. I had all sorts of weird situations growing up, and could mention more, but that's a subject for another time. What are your guys' thoughts? Have you remembered something vividly you experienced with friends, but they have zero memory of it?
If something kills and eats you in superposition, does it really happen? Say if you were able to replicate an experiment using superposition like Schrödinger's cat, where you could either be dead or alive, and you find out that you can die in superposition and yet still be alive. The impossible part of the thought experiment. Could you imagine a predator which only exists in such a state, and which feeds on things only in that state? Seems like a waste to let the wave function collapse without nature, finding a way to eat your superposition.
The thing is that the wolves didn't get close to me. My dad did a good job in protecting me. I don't really remember how many they were, but it was still a horrifying experience. I don't think I recall any death happened. Their teeth getting close to my neck would definitely be something I'd remember, but none of that happened. We were just stuck in the camper until the growling and the yipping got further from the campsite, and we took our chances and got out of there.
My birth story has changed. I'm the eldest of 4 kids. I always got told that my birth nearly killed my mom, and I almost died as well. The whole thing lasted over 24 hours. Last week, my dad told me that it was one of the easiest labor experiences my mom had. The whole thing only took 1 hour. That was never the story. I'm actually really confused by this. Also, my blood type has changed a couple of times. I started out O negative, then several years later it changed to O plus. A few weeks back, doctors told me I'm A plus. When I told my family my blood type now, even they freaked out because everyone remembered me being an O type at the very minimum. I have no idea what all of this means.
My theory is that it's not you moving in different timelines, but your consciousness itself. When you fall asleep, you can have many dreams, but sometimes dreams can get insanely weird. Vivid dreams that look like cataclysmic events are happening, and you just wake up like nothing happened. And soon, slowly, you notice more and more differences in things you know in life, including your family and friends' memories. I'm going to sleep, but will hopefully come back to this later to see more interesting stories about this.
Let me start by saying I have always thought Mandela effect stuff was fake. It was clearly people simply misremembering things that didn't really impact them. I promise, I swear to you, I am not lying here. Be me. Named Morris. By the end of elementary school, start getting lightly teased about this because I share a name with Pick related. See the movie myself. And the plot is in order to stop this guy, they need to figure out what his real name was. And then the reveal is, his name was Morris Knight. I remember thinking how dumb of a name that was. One year in high school, go as him to school for Halloween to show I'm in on the joke. People laughed. Fast forward to this year. Rewatch A Nightmare on Elm Street a few weeks ago. Because it's Halloween season, his name is Freddy Krueger. I feel like the world just got ripped out from under me. Message a buddy of mine who totally believes in Mandela effect stuff, saying I think I've been convinced. Tell him my story and mention how it messed me up because I distinctly remember being made fun of for sharing a name with him. My buddy responds by asking what I'm talking about. Eventually have to spell out for him that I thought the character was named Morris like me. Dude, your name is Freddy. Stare at my phone, totally confused. Check my wallet. My name is not Morris, it is Frederick. Call my parents, distraught. Schedule a doctor's appointment to check for signs of mental illness. 2 days ago, after several tests, I once again got a call from another specialist saying, I show no signs of anything wrong, and other than this I am suffering from absolutely no amnesia or any other mental issues. Guys, what the actual hell is this?
It's all in your head, Morris.
It's what Anon says only now exists at this moment. Future and past are non-existent, and we fabricate them with our fantastic sense of imagination or vivid sense of memory, respectively. As such, the same mechanisms are used to construct our collective perception of reality. Your name is Morris, but you are not Morris. You came to this world as a life, as an organism, but your parents gave you the name Morris. Your extended family called you Morris, your friends called you that, your government-issued ID states you are Morris. Somewhere in a computer database you are linked to a string containing values Morris. Then someone comes and calls you Harry. Obviously, when you pool all other sources, 99% of actors agree you are Morris and call the other guy mad. Same thing is with the Mandela effect. As information and memes propagate, morph, and get lost with time, it can lead to forks in collective memory. It is enough for one influential person to misspell something or tell a slightly different variation of an event, which gets propagated over time, leading to people having different memories of events, names, designs, etc.
Hey X, little experiment. Who here remembers having a near-death experience around 1995 or so? I remember around that time I was 8 or so and was playing football in the street with some friends when I caught a pass and fell back, hitting the back of my head on the asphalt. I woke up in a stupor and was drooling and laughing nonsensically for a couple of seconds while my friends gathered around me to see if I was okay. After a minute of being out of it, I came to and decided to go home. Weirdly enough, when I got home and watched TV, I found out that our cable provider had added Cartoon Network, which it previously had not had. Not necessarily bizarre, but a detail that sticks out in this memory. Reason I brought this up was that in a Mandela effect thread, there seemed to be a lot of people that remember having near-death experiences, accidents, or illnesses around 1995. Regardless of your thoughts on the Mandela effect, mass delusion, real phenomenon, or just a stupid meme. The fact that so many people remember bad stuff happening in '95 stood out to me. Dunno, could just be a coincidence, especially when you have large surveys of populations, but neither the less, it was fascinating.
This may sound silly, but this is something that has nagged at me for years. I remember being about 8 years old, so in about '98, and I saw the preview for a movie called Shaolin Soccer. I remember it distinctly. I remember thinking it looked badass. Then about 5 years later, I saw the same preview for the same movie. I remember being extremely weirded out. I almost thought for a little while I must be psychic or something. It stands out though. This movie came out in 2004. The Chinese version came out in 2001. I have never had an explanation for this, and it has always been stuck in the back of mind because something about it just feels wrong. I'm really tearing up writing this too. I believe in and have researched a lot of conspiracy theories. I never realized that I didn't really believe in them until today though. When I started reading this about the Berenstain Bears and the Mandela effect, it just hit me like a train. And it feels so right. It's like a gut-level belief, not an intellectual belief, like with one world government and fake media stories.
I had surgery as a kid, adenoids removed. When they put me under, I saw the nurse holding my hand, and she had bright light radiating from behind her. It seemed like she just stood here and held my hand for a long time, and then I woke up. IDK. It was probably the drugs, but it seemed supernatural to me at the time. I want to say I was 9. Also, every now and then I'll randomly smell the smell of the drug they knocked me out with. It has a distinct chemically smell, hard to describe other than being a light and floaty smell. Makes me wonder sometimes if I died on the operating table and just don't know it. It's very random when the smell comes and leaves pretty quickly. It's like someone shoved a rag full of it in my face and then it's gone. Anybody else had a similar experience?
Oh, neat. My first insourced Mandela effect. I know that's not what it's called, but is it not fun to evoke the words of cloak and mind to color it? For some reason, I have a specific memory of having always referred to the South China Sea as the Pearl Sea. It's what I had always referred to it as in my head. It's the first and only name that I had known it by, and the name I have the strongest reinforcement of. In the past several years, with all the mention of said sea, with ongoing geopolitical tensions, and even the debate on calling it by the South China Sea. But I didn't think much of it. Maybe Pearl Sea fell out of favor in modern times, or maybe that just wasn't what the English-speaking world called it. I searched around to see where I might have heard this name for it and found mention that the Pearl River flows into the sea, and the river was called a sea when it was more flooded but not much else. It feels so much like in my head that the region is famously known as the Pearl Sea. I always thought the report and fanfare around the Mandela effect was dumb nonsense, even though I found the concept itself to be fascinating to contemplate, alongside conceptualizing experience quantum conscious immortality and near-death experiences. Ended up having my own near-death experiences a few years ago, but since I'm having my own moment and a general longer shift in perspective experience processing, I may as well engage with the shared consciousness without counter-disposition. That is to say, the topic of the sea's name itself is not what is of interest to me.
So when did the Mandela effect take place? In 2010 something happened, right? And then in 2012 the whole world-ending bullshit something also happened, but no one noticed anything at first. But then some people started having memories of specific things, like someone's death or really anything. On the internet, people started talking about the Mandela effect earliest in 2010. Before that, I couldn't find anything about the theory. But then in 1995, some old dude got famous for his research about false memory syndrome, which when you look into it, sounds a lot like the Mandela effect. So did someone in 2010 come up with some new name and a whole theory about false memory, and change the name to the Mandela effect?
The only reason it started to get noticed to an extreme degree in 2010 is because right around that point, high-speed internet and mobile phone internet service in your pocket had become the norm. The availability of instant internet access not only allowed people to search these changes on the fly, but also allowed them to connect with others suffering the same experience. Also factor in that many of these memories pertain to media and items that were popular in the 1990s. The 90s is the first decade in history of which we have massive amounts of video evidence and recording still in hand. With the advent and availability of home VCR recorders, it appears that nearly everything had been recorded by at least somebody, even single airings of kids' shows, thought to be lost forever. We're found on tape and ready for upload. The vast amount of recorded footage from the 90s, combined with the internet boom of the 2010s, resulted in a powder keg of information and media being uploaded and long-forgotten memories being revisited. Millennials, more than any other generation, are nostalgic beyond belief. Their entire personalities seem to be formed around the consumption of media, products, and references to Saud media. It's really insane. Seriously, it grosses me out to the degree my own generation has utterly hindered the progress, production, and overall evolution of everything from media to fashion in favor of reissues, remakes, and outright carbon copies. Regardless, maybe it's genuinely a dimensional shift, but I think it's more likely that this really marks the first time in history we were able to instantly review things we recall from childhood and cause people to confront their false memories. I mean, 99% of these examples are utterly meaningless bullshit, again pertaining to things kids that only kids in the 90s. Now adults in the late 2010s would even give a damn about.
Always wanted to post a schizo ramble. The reality simulation and parallel Earths theories correlate with another. Each human being is actually a rendering of the simulation or soul. Each decision these individual souls make splinter the simulation into two. There are effectively an infinite amount of simulated Earths with individual simulations or souls interacting across probability branches. If it is a simulation, however, then like all computers, the storage is finite. It does not matter where the computer resides in the metaphysical place, literal hell and heaven, some dimension beyond ours, whatever. A computer actively needs memory for procedurally generated simulation threads. For each soul, an individual thread which splinters endlessly through life, collecting all possible conclusions, then death. At the point of last possible soul death, the simulation is complete, data documented, and is terminated. All threads are deleted from this one individual soul. This saves space in the computer's reality simulation. When these threads are deleted, their actions or consequences are merged with others. This merging is how some dreams can render the life and death of others, and specifically their deaths. This also explains the merging of timelines prevalent across the Mandela effect. The reality simulation and parallel Earths actually explain a lot of weird bull in reality, but that's for another schizo ramble.
Everyone talks about the Mandela effect. I'm generally a skeptic, but after hearing about the whole Shazam thing, which I vividly remember seeing on HBO sometime in the early 2000s, I've noticed at least 3 more examples of films that I saw back in the day, over 10 years ago, that doesn't seem to exist anymore. The first one, a film titled Plymouth, I've never actually seen but saw DVD covers in Blockbuster when it came out, circa 2005 or 2006. It starred Dennis Quaid and was a comedy drama. I think the plot was vaguely similar to the one he starred in with Topher Grace, In Good Company, but it wasn't the same one. The next one I actually saw on HBO about 12 years ago, but don't remember the exact title. It was a horror thriller film set somewhere in rural Texas and had Pierce Brosnan in the starring role. Pierce Brosnan played a small-town sheriff who was hunting a werewolf-type killer. The werewolf turned out to be his partner's teenage son. Dwight Yoakam played his partner. It wasn't a particularly good film. Brosnan's impression of a Texas drawl was laughable. The whole film was unintentionally funny, not as scary as intended, but it was entertaining for sure. Had my attention the whole time. I remember reading the description of the film. It came around the same time as Ginger Snaps, classic werewolf film, I think 1999. Brosnan was at his career's peak. The title may have been something like Wolf in the Wind or Wolf in the Wind, but I can't remember for sure. Do a quick Google search. There's no evidence of a werewolf film starring either Brosnan or Yoakam. Another movie memory hold. Tell me, have you seen any movies or TV shows that have since been memory hold?
I didn't see a Mandela effect thread on the catalog, so I guess this is it now. Mandela general number. Whatever. Should I be posting links or something? Just post them if you know. I'm only making this general because I never really believed in this weird pseudoscience. To me, it was all coincidence or false memory. But then something weird happened, and I could not explain it. I'll do my best to green text it. Be me, 26. Cleaning out my parents' house. The house I grew up in. They weren't dead or anything, just retiring to Florida. Looking through old school papers with my mom. Wow. One paper looks recent enough to have not been a childish mistake. Show mom. Joke. Why would I spell it that way? I laugh. She doesn't. What did you spell wrong? It looks fine to me. Pointed out modern. She doesn't get it. Look for any other papers that may have this. Can't really find one. Look at media, books, songs, poems, history books. Modern, modern, modern. Just yesterday I was saying modern. Remember writing it modern. Not quite used to the word and often mess it up. I'm afraid there may be more words I haven't learned that are wrong yet.
What the heck X? I'll bite. I should be dead. Today, yesterday, and tomorrow. I shouldn't even really have made it out of the womb, so that's the first near-death experience to count. In the stomach of a pregnant driver, well past the age of fertility. Icy conditions. Bad drivers. I've had many afterwards. Everything from fire to a stray bullet, drowning, high-speed collisions, being within arm's reach of lightning, and miraculously not losing my footing over a large drop. I've been electrocuted before, and I don't remember at the moment how strong amps pulled out of a household outlet are on average. Remember the feeling and the exit wounds on my hand. Yes, I've had at least one significant head injury that I'm aware of, but it didn't seem to do anything significant as far as anyone can tell, besides a cranky 8-year-old unfazed from the recent mattress-induced crash landing. Self-termination has also failed a few times, so add those to the list of near-death experiences. Quite frankly, sometimes it feels like I've been to places I haven't. Not as if I remember being somewhere else, just that I know that I most certainly could be, say, standing over there a few hours ago. Which is probably nonsense. And like the above, I often both feel as if I can perceive my own state of being alive and dead at the same time, at all positions. Maybe it is some form of brain damage or hardwired backwards neuron firing shenanigans, but I'd be more damned if I don't mention that I often look at certain parts of the world and people, and sometimes begin to muse about times at which it was X amount of different there, then. Companies that don't exist, works of fiction that never happened, countries that don't exist or are different, events that never happened, people that aren't dead. I can't even list them off the top of my head, because it just never ends. There's a deep-reaching array of states for every single thing, and it used to drive my wits to no end until I gave up and accepted it.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check out the Odyssey page in the description for a second archive of the channel's videos.
There's also a Rumble archive as a backup,